Involved in the years-long killing of Yemeni civilians, Saudi Arabia's list of human rights abuses is also long and dark at home. A country whose bombing campaign on neighbouring Yemen has caused the world's worst humanitarian crisis has beheaded or detained hundreds of Saudi dissidents over the past few years. Ironically, the kingdom is a member of the UN Human Rights Council, and Saudi Arabia's envoy was picked in September 2015 as chair of a panel that appoints independent experts. Back then, the executive director of UN Watch sharply criticised the decision, saying, "It is scandalous that the UN chose a country that has beheaded more people this year than Daesh to be head of a key human rights panel. Petrodollars and politics have trumped human rights." Only 3 months later, Saudi Arabia sparked outrage among the Muslim world by executing prominent Shia cleric Sheikh Nimr, who had called for free elections in the country. Now, 2 British human rights lawyers are demanding that Saudi Arabia be suspended from the UN Human Rights Council over its rights record. The lawyers have particularly voiced concern over what they called arbitrary detention or disappearance of 61 Saudis, among them rights activists and political dissidents. Ken MacDonald and Rodney Dixon argue that Riyadh's move is, quote, a breach of both Saudi and international law, referring to a resolution that excludes members who commit gross and systematic violations of human rights.
That's only the 61 that they could document and prove. More people have been disappeared, and that's the least of the problems for Saudi Arabia and their violation of human rights. They've been starving people in Yemen, attacking civilians, shooting up weddings and funerals, and murdering people with impunity. What they're doing internally to each other, sure, they do target human rights activists for very little pretext. Because they don't like people threatening the regime. It is a despotic monarchy. Sometimes they turn on each other. I don't know why or how Saudi Arabia ever got on the Human Rights Council in the first place.
In reaction to their request, Human Rights Council spokesman Rolando Gomez said any move to suspend a member would ultimately need to be taken by the General Assembly in a 2/3 majority of members present and voting. Given the West's support for Saudi Arabia and the country's funding of various UN bodies, the kingdom's suspension seems to be an uphill task. Meanwhile, Mohammed bin Salman, the young heir to the Saudi throne, is spearheading a plan to reform and transform the Saudi economy by 2030. As part of his plan, the Crown Prince has also promised to carry out reforms which he believes would see the improvement of the country's rights situation. Nevertheless, prominent rights organisation Amnesty International has said the human rights situation has, quote, deteriorated markedly since Mohammed took over as heir to the throne in June 2017.
They've been sponsoring Wahhabi terrorists in Syria for half a decade. They've been doing that in northern Africa as well. You see them arming rebels that chop off hands and murder children, and any horror that humanity has ever done. And everything always floats back to Saudi Arabia, including Al-Qaeda attacking the United States on September 11th. And yet, they still continue to be business partners and get billions of dollars from the UK and the United States, because human rights is never the primary concern. It's just a pretext to selectively go after people when it is beneficial to others.
This comes as Mohammed bin Salman, who is also serving as defence minister, is already under fire for costly problems facing the oil-rich kingdom, like the deadly war on Yemen. And his ascension to crown could make Saudi policies more hawkish than before, increasing volatility in an already unstable region.